Hey guys, hope you're well and welcome to my review of The Life of a Showgirl by the world's biggest pop star, Taylor Swift. But before we get onto the review, don't forget that this is just my opinion, so be civil in the comments below. So this is now the 12th studio album from Taylor Swift herself, and with this new album cover, we were sort of expecting something grand as well as dark and poetic. And that was kind of delivered on this opening track, The Fate of Ophelia, which is this Shakespearean love story from a unique angle. Obviously, this song's about love, but we get some clever lyricism as well as bolder instrumentation from Max Martin instead of Jack Antonoff on the production. There were a lot of complaints that although Jack Antonoff is a great producer, we know that for a fact, but it didn't seem to be quite hitting the right marks on some of Taylor's previous work, especially on Tortured Poets Department. So with this Max Martin on production, we were expecting some more grand pop songs with slightly more upbeat and maybe faster tempos. And speaking of love songs that have a slightly more unique twist, we have the second track, Elizabeth Taylor, which has some witty lyricism and a chorus which feels like it has a lot more substance to it. I think this is definitely my favorite song off the album. The strings and the piano lift the melody, and then once that chorus hits, it just sounds like a nonchalant high off of Reputation. Opalite and Father Figure sort of go downhill slightly in terms of lyricism and overall song quality. These tracks mostly have mid-instrumentation and some forgettable lyrics, apart from the off-putting line in Father Figure, where I can make deals with the devil because my dick's bigger, after depicting herself as this grand character that sort of overlooks the music industry. Yeah, it kind of feels a bit off-putting, so these are definitely not my favorite tracks. Then Eldest Daughter is not a bad song, but it kind of feels a bit tone-deaf coming from someone like Taylor Swift, though I agree with the message of the song. I feel like it's kind of hard to sympathize with a billionaire. I mean, you're Taylor Swift, how hard can it really be? Though I do get how fans of Taylor Swift are gonna like this song. Ruin of Friendship is a decent enough track with some enjoyable instrumentation and a narrative of losing out on someone that you had a connection to, though I do feel like the lyrics on this song may be misconstrued a little bit. To me, it kind of feels like the song could be interpreted as, oh, I should have not cared about the fact that this person's in a relationship. I should have just kissed them anyway because they might die soon. Obviously, I know that's not what the song is trying to portray, so I do think this track is decent and it's got a decent narrative. So the first half of this album is actually pretty decent, but unfortunately it takes a massive nosedive in terms of songwriting and lyrical quality in the second half, especially with one of her worst songs starting off with Actually Romantic. Actually Romantic has boring instrumentation as well as some pretty cringeworthy lyrics on this song that are supposedly dissing Charli XCX. Now, regardless of what the drama is between Charli XCX and Taylor Swift, I think it's clear that Charli was just trying to write a song depicting her insecurities rather than actively trying to diss Taylor Swift. So it does feel like the lyrics on this song sort of come off as mean and tone deaf because it feels like sympathy is a knife, if that's what the song is referring to, was misinterpreted ever so slightly. I wouldn't be so mad if this was actually a decent diss track, but unfortunately there's just not a lot of substance on this song. Speaking of gross, the track Wood is this song that sort of starts off funky and upbeat, but very quickly turns into explicit metaphors of dicks, with lines like "the curse on me was broken by your magic wand" and "his love was the key that opened my thighs." I mean, yuck. I feel like we really should know less about each other. I feel like Taylor Swift took lines out of Sabrina's book for this track, but since we know who this song is about, it's most certainly off-putting. And then in my opinion, the tracks Wishlist and Honey are just basic and forgettable songs that follow a classic Taylor Swift formula without trying anything too new. And then Cancelled might be tied for her worst song alongside Actually Romantic, with somehow cheesy and edgy lyrics at the same time. this song kind of showcases that Taylor Swift might be hanging out with the wrong people because she likes her friends cancelled and it's more relatable. I mean, there's a lot of crappy people out there, so this song does end up sounding a bit dodgy, but okay, Taylor. Also, special shout out to the line, "Did your girl Ross too close to the sun?" I mean, that is just an awful lyric, but it did give me a chuckle the first time I heard it, so that's why it gets a special shout out. And then you finish the album with the title track, "The Life of a Showgirl," which features Sabrina Carpenter, and it kind of just comes off a bit forgettable, which is surprising considering I pictured this song to be like a grand finale type thing with a lot of grand instrumentation and Sabrina to carry the highs on this song. So I was a bit let down by this last track because I did actually have somewhat high expectations, but I do think Sabrina does take it up a notch a little bit. So, from someone who wrote the fantastic album Folklore, which had really deep lyrics and great narrative storytelling, this album was certainly disappointing, even compared to some of her older work with albums such as Red and Speak Now, and even 1989. This album just really comes off as immature. I feel like even in her early 20s, she was writing more mature lyrics, and yes, they were playful and sometimes cringeworthy, but it was more understandable compared to Taylor Swift, who is now in her mid-30s and writing some of these lyrics on this album, which are just truly kind of cringe and forgettable and just a bit immature. To be fair, this album was not as bad as I first expected it to be. The first few tracks on this album are actually pretty good, especially Elizabeth Taylor and Fate of Ophelia. I feel like they actually have some clever lyricism and a decent enough beat to carry the song. But unfortunately for me, the negatives outweigh the positives here, especially with some pretty bad tracks like Cancelled and Actually Romantic. I feel like it was a good idea to have Max Martin on the production here, but the lyrics are definitely a letdown for this album. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to rate it a 4.5 out of 10. Now, don't forget, this is just my opinion, and if you enjoy this album, then I'm really happy for you. Make sure to comment below what your favorite and least favorite tracks were. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. That would be greatly appreciated. So yeah, guys, what did you think of this new album by worldwide famous pop star Taylor Swift, The Life of a Showgirl? I mean, I was definitely disappointed, but not surprised. I do think Taylor Swift has a lot of potential as showcased in some of her previous albums, so the childish songwriting on most of this album is certainly a letdown. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching my review, and I'll see you in the next video.